Hello everybody, it's Anfield here. I've got an interesting video for you here that stemmed out of another video. Basically, I spent today trying to make a video on my general thoughts on the game and its state and things like that, and I got to a few points. And one point in particular was the alpha damage on certain tanks and how I believe that they should be brought more in line, and that excessive alpha was generally bad for the game. Now, I kept, that specific was one of the specific things I was talking about. There's lots of different things I was going over, but that was one of them. And I was having a real hard time condensing it. I wanted it to be brief to the point, so it wasn't, a really long segment of the video. But every time I tried to record it, there were more things I wanted to talk about, and it was very difficult for me to keep it brief, which is what I wanted, rather than, it be long-winded. So while I was, talking about these things in my, multiple times, I recorded it over and over and over again about how I felt about, the alpha and how, it negatively affects the game when, tanks have enormous amounts of alpha. And during my ramblings, I came across something that I had thought about a while ago, but, I sort of re-thought about it, so to speak, I don't know. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about here now. And this is something that doesn't have to replace, perhaps toning down alpha a little bit, but it's something that could help in general. And that's a general increase in HP across all vehicles. So, how would this work? Well, in this sense, we're talking about what kind of benefits would you get from increasing the amount of hit points in, across the tiers. Now, we're going to use tier 10 because it's just the easiest, and specifically when we're talking about, how bad alpha can get, generally that's mostly aimed in the higher tiers anyway. So if you were to increase hit points, what you would be saying, let's just say, I don't know, for an example, let's say 30%. Every tank gets a 30% boost in hit points. Or you could range it if you want by tier, I don't know. Let's just say 30% in general. So if you took a mouse, it would have 3,900 hit points. If you took a Russian medium, it would almost gain an extra 600 hit points. So doing this would raise a potential number of questions that you would have to assess the pros and cons of such a change. So I want to discuss some of those things here, and then you guys can let me in the comments section what you think, whether this would be a good idea or just a bad idea in general. So starting off with what, in terms of how it would affect the game economy when you have tanks with more hit points. So, obviously, more hit points in games means people are going to have to shoot more. So that's more rounds. So it's difficult to see whether you would lose more money or you would make more money. Now, it really depends, I guess, on how effective you are in your shells as it is right now. If you're hitting your shots and doing damage, you probably could have potential to make more money than currently. On the flip side of that, there's a chance that maybe you would lose more money. And ultimately, you have to look at repair costs as well. With greater repair costs, it could be a problem. Now, if you scale the repair costs so that it doesn't cost more now, then it's fine. In fact, I think there's pretty much a cap as it is. Like a mouse destroyed is like the same as, an E5 or something. I don't know. I would have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't get that much steeper, just because it has 3,000 hit points. Not 100% sure. You guys probably let me know anyway. But you'd have to be careful anyway, just in case, with repairs, that is. Now, obviously, lots of other things would change, including your mastery badges, the experience. There's a potential there for more experience to be gained, as well as mark of excellence. Those numbers would become inflated because it would be easier to get those marks. Although, obviously, the adjustment would happen with the server over time, I would imagine, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But, again, it would just have to be looked at. So, moving on to how it would actually alter how battles play out. The reason I would find this at least an interesting concept is because, especially when you're dealing with alpha, is if you have more hit points, it's not as big of a deal if you do take a large hit. It would limit or remove one-shots short of being ammo racked on most tanks. When you look at mediums having, in this example, 2,600 hit points, they're not really that liable to be one-shot anymore by artillery or otherwise. So you'll be able to do more. This is a tank game that you play to shoot other tanks. There's more hit points to shoot and more hit points for you to work with. If people have more hit points, they might be more liable to be aggressive too. They don't feel like they have to camp so much because they have a minimum amount of hit points to protect. Specifically in World of Tanks, where you can't respawn in a battle, it might be nice to have that greater sense of survivability when you're playing your tank. If you get in a sticky situation where you're being YOLO'd, you would also have more survivability and durability and buy yourself at least more time for allies to come and assist you. And with more hit points in fighting with other tanks, RNG becomes a slightly less of a factor in the sense that, if you get some really unlucky bounce on the opponent that, is really rare, you'll have a chance to make up for that and things like that, which will implement more skill level values into the game. And if people have more hit points in general, especially when you're looking at new players, they might have more of a chance to learn the game. If they're in battles longer and they survive longer, they'll have a chance to learn more things rather than, oh, I YOLO'd over here, I died, I'm going to go into my next tank. So people will have a better chance to improve their gameplay overall when they're in the battles for longer and doing more things. But, of course, there has to be cons. With people staying in battles for a longer duration and period of time, we can only assume it may not work out this way, that battles may last 30% longer than they're currently. I think the average is like 6 minutes or something. So, you could be potentially looking at longer battles because of the fact that there's more hit points. This may be a little bit of an issue for Matchmaker when you consider that people have longer queue times, especially on the smaller servers. A server like the Russian server, the European server, they probably wouldn't even blink at the thought of it. But on the North American server and some of the other servers, longer battle times may not be such a positive thing. And it would probably be quite a bit of work for Wargames to go back through the missions, readdress all of those, and make sure that they're in line with the new HP values. You would also have to check that in Clan Wars, it doesn't become far too easy to turtle just because of the raw amount of hit points, because you're not increasing DPM on any tanks, and even potentially slightly nerfing Alpha a little bit on some of the higher end TDs. So you'd have to be careful that it doesn't become too stagnant in a Clan War battle. I don't think it would be too much of an issue in a pub battle, but in a Clan War battle it could become easy to camp. On the other end, it could also not be easy to camp in the sense that people have more hit points on their team, so they can feel they can be more aggressive. So it's very difficult to know what might happen in that regard. Also, of course, some tanks have very limited ammo capacity compared to many other vehicles, and so that would have to be looked at too. There'd be a lot of tanks running out of rounds. I'm not sure how much of an issue that would be, but it could potentially be an issue. So again, it would have to be looked at and tested and assessed, and it would be quite a difficult process to be like, well, does this tank now have enough hit points, or not hit points, excuse me, ammo to proceed to be effective, or do we have to buff the ammo capacity on this tank? So yeah, that's it pretty much, guys. I just wanted to talk about it, see what you guys thought. Is it really stupid? Could it work? It's difficult to say, but let me know what you think in the comments section down below. I always read your guys' comments, so yeah, let me know what you think. In general, I don't know if I'm going to release this general thoughts video. I'm having a real tough time. I might have to just script it because it's difficult for me to stay on topic and not like go off on these wild tangents, so to speak. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.